Frankie, I want you to know this only proves how far I'll go to book a banquet. Franklin, first time I heard the word that you referred to as Franklin, something came out of nowhere. I think it was the guy that was running the convention center for a while. He always called you Franklin, and I never knew who he was talking about. But Frank is the son of Milwaukee. He was born here in 1936, grew up on the west side, and around junior high his family had relocated to Whitefish Bay. And then he was off to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he spent 4 years fooling around. And then after he graduated in 1958, he attended Marquette Law School, and he graduated with his JD in 1960. He founded his firm, Gimbel, Riley, Guerin, and Brown, after serving as an assistant U.S. attorney from 1963 through 1968. His experience as a federal prosecutor has proven invaluable in developing a successful private criminal law practice. Over the years, Frank has expanded that practice into civil litigation, including complex business, employment, communications, and First Amendment cases. He has represented small businesses and large corporations, as well as individuals ranging from working men and women to judges, CEOs, and other professionals. No person's problem is too insignificant or too complicated. Helping people is Frank's passion and the cornerstone of his practice. As he so aptly puts it, my goal is to ensure that people are better off in some way after I render my services than when they came in the door. And if that's the end result, I feel I've been successful. He also wants clients to feel that every attorney at the firm is accessible to them. Frank has often said about his firm, there's a real team approach here. This is not always the case in law firms. My job is to mirror that behavior so that everyone works together for the common good of the entire firm, and most importantly, for our clients. Reaching out to and serving the community is another very important aspect of Frank. There's nothing that we do that should be measured by direct economic impact. Giving back is a crucial part of being a good citizen and neighbor in the communities we serve, Frank says. And demonstration of this mantra, Frank has established a very impressive record of community service. In May of 1994, he was appointed to a 3-year term on the Wisconsin Central District Board of Directors by then Governor Tommy G. Thompson. And if you want to get some idea of how the world seems to have changed, Tommy Thompson was a Republican. Frank Gimbel was a Democrat. Fair to say, Frank? And as the years went by and the administrations changed in our state, we wound up with another Republican governor. And at that time, Frank retired from the board of the Wisconsin Central District. And it was unfortunate that we lost his services. I was a member of that board, and I had a chance to see Frank operate and guide what happened with that project through the years. A big investment in our community. It was an enormous asset in the community, and Frank really elevated it way beyond what anybody else could have or would have done. It was exceptional to watch what he did. And it was interesting because that was my business, not his business, and yet I knew I could never have done what he did. It's remarkable, and but in a way, kind of sad that we have to see that story in the context of a change in it. Two same administrations, one with a view of making sure that the project had great leadership, another one with a view that said he's the wrong party. That was too bad. Anyway, Frank did a great job, and that's all I wanted to say. Because under his guidance, the district completed the construction and renovation and financing of the buildings that form the core of our convention business. It's the Wisconsin Center, the University of Milwaukee Panther Arena, and the Miller High Life Theater. And he was elected chairperson at its first meeting, served in that capacity until 2015. That was an investment that he supervised of, I believe, somewhere around $250 million. Is that right, Frank? Yeah, somewhere in there. Pardon me? What? I didn't hear you. A little north of there. No. I thought you were more careful than that. Around the time of his transition from that position, Joel Brennan, who is now the secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Administration, said this about Frank. One thing I've always had great respect and high regard for him is his heart and what is good for the community. In April of 2015, Frank was bestowed a Lifetime Achievement Award from Marquette University. That award serves as a way for Marquette Law School to honor the ideal of the Marquette lawyer. In fact, Frank has had a very long list of honors and awards. The following are just some of them. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Milwaukee Bar Association. He had the United States Attorney General Superior Performance Award, Milwaukee Bar Association Lawyer of the Year, Community Service Human Relations Award, Milwaukee Jewish Committee, the Charles Goldberg Distinguished Service Award for Lifetime Achievement in the Legal Profession, Judge Myron L. Gordon Lifetime Achievement Award, the Defender William Coffey Memorial Award for Professionalism in the field of criminal law. He was named one of the best lawyers in America for criminal defense by Best Lawyers Magazine. And just some of the things he's done as part of his profession and also volunteer service. He served as the Milwaukee Bar Association president and also president of the Wisconsin State Bar Association. Chaired the board of directors, as I mentioned, at the Wisconsin Center District. Was a director of the Greater Milwaukee Foundation Board. President of Downtown Rotary. Vice chairman of the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, and a member of the Milwaukee Marquette Law School Advisory Board. Pretty impressive list of achievements and of community service. Managing a work-life balance is also very important to Frank. When he isn't managing the helm at GRGB or volunteering, he also enjoys spending time with his wife Ann, 4 children, and 7 grandchildren, right? 7. And I know they are among his proudest achievements, way above all this other stuff I just read. But these are very significant accolades, and we ought to also appreciate what others have said about Frank. Michael Swarovski, a former chief judge of Milwaukee County, said of Frank's professional successes, he has a way of speaking to juries and judges and courts that causes people to listen, to focus, to pay attention to him. He's a commanding presence at a trial. Frank's son Josh, who is a partner in the law firm his father founded and who's with us tonight, said previously, "My dad is the most resilient person I know. He always comes up fighting. He always has a great quote. He always has great energy and looks at the bright side of everything." Now, as you can tell from that prodigious biography, Frank has been one hell of a busy guy. And while a large chunk of it has been taking care of clients, which Frank does very well, a lot has also been devoted to his family and to his community and generally to his fellow man. He has built a long track record of success, not only in the legal profession, but in those contributions he's made to society throughout his entire life. The exact thing that I believe Pi Lam always taught us when we were in school, the very thing that the Big Pi Award exemplifies. I think the coolest thing about the group of us who were Pi Lams at Wisconsin in the mid-1950s is that we were a group that had a lot of fun together. It's a nice way of describing what we were having. But in spite of, or because of that, a whole lot of shenanigans we pulled, and I won't detail them right at this point. because I believe the statute of limitations hasn't run yet. But we always pulled for each other, and through the years, we've always been resources to one another and friends to each other, no more so than Frank. We've all kept in touch in one way or another. Frank and I have also enjoyed spending time together in the community. We've known each other for almost 65 years, so I think I have a pretty good handle on what he's all about. We both have had kids who followed in our footsteps, and we've had kids who created their own footprints, all to the great pride of Frank and to me as well. And Frank and I have got some things in common, believe it or not. I'm a reprobate lawyer. I got my JD degree, and actually I didn't. I got my, let's see, what was it? It was an LB or LB degree or something like that. And then 10 years later, I think they sent me a letter and said, well, now you're no longer a Bachelor of Laws, you're a Doctor of Laws. And so I became a JD. In any case, so we've just, as I say, we've had a lot of things in common. In a way, we're both in the lodging business. Now, in my business, when my business associates call, they're usually looking to get into one of my places. When Franks are calling, they're usually trying to get his help to stay out of those places. And when our friends and business associates go away, they usually reside in gated communities. Mine usually can be found in places like Boca or Scottsdale. Frank's in places like Naples, Longboat Key, or Waupun. For those of you who don't know what Waupun is, you'll ask Frank. He'll tell you. Frank was always the most handsome guy in the house in Madison. He had the most hair. Time took care of that. And most important, he was always the most convincing in any argument, even though we often wondered if he was just making it up along the way. My guess is that throughout his career, the judges and the juries also have wondered about that. But at the end of the day, his sincere style usually won over. Frank was always able to help his brothers talk our way out of whatever trouble we were in. The miracle is that our reunions haven't been held in places like Leavenworth or Rikers Island. So, Frank, I want to congratulate you on this very, very well-deserved award. The Big Pie Award is really very important. I didn't realize it when I got it, probably because the ceremony was held in the living room of Marv Margolis' house. 3 of us got it that day, and there were about 12 people in the whole place. So it wasn't, somehow we didn't recognize how important it was, but over the years, I've learned what a wonderful tribute it is from an organization that was so important to the way my life was shaped, and I believe your life was shaped. So congratulations, Frank, and thank you very much for inviting me to come up here and say those nice things for you, things that people often think about but never take the time to say. So I'm glad I had a chance to do it.
I'm back. I now call Big Pie recipient Roger Orloff to the podium to begin this evening's recognition of Frank.
Brothers, friends, we gathered tonight to celebrate the remarkable life and accomplishments of Frank Gimbel and to thank him for the honor that he has brought to Pi Lambda Phi by presenting him with the Big Pie Award. The Big Pie is presented to alumni brothers who are held in high esteem by virtue of outstanding accomplishment, which brings honor to the brother and to Pi Lambda Phi. It is the Lifetime Achievement Award for Pi Lam, and the Big Pi has become a who's who of well-regarded and famous Pi Lam alumni. Sandy Koufax, Richard Rogers, Oscar Hammerstein II, and one of my favorites, a name that probably does not have the same cachet as those, but whose accomplishments certainly brought great honor to himself and to Pi Lambda Phi, Arthur Garfield Hayes, founder of the American Civil Liberties Union, second chair at the Scopes Monkey Trial, and one of the first group selected for the Big Pi Award. There are many, many others also greatly accomplished who've brought honor to us. Less than half of 1% of all Pi Lambda Phi men have received the Big Pi. The Wisconsin Omega chapter has inducted 14 men over its 93-year history, a true testament to this chapter's influence and durability to have so many recipients of such a rare award. Tonight, Frank Gimbel becomes the 15th Big Pi inductee from this chapter. The other 14 inductees from the Wisconsin Omega chapter are Jules Lennard, 1965, Marshall Holub, 1985, Senator Herbert Kohl, 1987, Stephen Marcus, 1987, Alan H. Bud Selig, 1987, Clarence Becker, 1995, Elliot Lehman, 1995, Darrell Ruttenberg, 1995, Arthur Pankow, 1996, Mandel Schimberg, 1996, Harvey H. Meyerhoff, 1998, Richard Jaffe, 2000, Harvey Weinberg, 2000, Walter Pankow, 2001, and tonight, Frank Gimbel. It is my honor to present Frank Gimbel with his Big Pi Award. Frank, will you please join me on the stage to accept your award? Yours.
Thank you, Roger, Ian, all of the members of the foundation board and staff, and all of the staff of Pi Lambda Phi. As I have listened to all these things tonight about me, I said, who is that guy? None of the adventures in my life that were outlined with some level of specificity by Brother Steve Marcus were done to achieve awards. Trust me. One thing that does come to pass every time that someone rings my phone, knocks on my door, and says, we'd like you to receive our Lifetime Achievement Award, I am wondering whether or not I should call my wife and say, are our funeral arrangements in order? Because Lifetime Achievement is a recognition of somebody at the end of his life, ostensibly. And I'm not ready yet to be at the end of my life. I want to make two observations before I talk to you about my Pi Lam years. One is that I'm glad I'm here tonight, not only because of the distinguished award you bestowed upon me and anybody in the process of making that selection. I thank you. But I came down with a respiratory infection on Tuesday night, and I haven't been out of the house since then until tonight, except to see doctors. So if I cough or if I stumble a little bit with my diction here tonight, give me a little bit of rope. If I don't flick my fingers as applause to you all, it's because I got arthritis in my fingers, and I can't flip my fingers anymore. That was a great thing, though, in its day. It was a unique characteristic. My Pilam days were a hallmark in my life, and I have here tonight to celebrate with me for this award some friends of mine for the last 65 years. One you've met, and that's Steve Marcus, and as he said, we have had interactions with each other for the 60 plus years, and those interactions have been social, fraternal, and aimed at making Milwaukee a very exciting place for people to visit, and eventually, if they find the excitement to be something they want to be a part of, to settle down here. Our paths crossed just kind of in a crazy way for a criminal defense lawyer being involved in community activities like building a convention center. How that happened, I don't know. It happened. It happened. I look down at the table right in front of me here, and I see Mike Perlow and his wife Sue. I see Al Hawk Lerner and his wife Ann. I see Bob Miller and his wife Nancy. I see Joni and Pat Kearns. Those were and are not only brothers of mine in Pilam, but we set friendships back some 60 years ago that have lasted through today and hopefully for some significant period of time in the future. I love them all. I think that I had an opportunity to learn from each one of them in a certain way. Alan Hawk Lerner and I competed on the fraternity football team as the tailbacks, and he told everybody that he met that he was much better than me. I contested it until tonight. You're right. There's more to Pilam than just throwing compliments back and forth at each other. There is, as a part of my University of Wisconsin experience, being in a fraternity, becoming aware of life outside of your parents' home. You're away at college, and as most of us know who now have college-age and children and college-age grandchildren, you begin to establish the metrics and the signposts of your life. So I got from the University of Wisconsin Omega chapter not only an appreciation of the importance of the creed that we've heard repeated time and again here tonight, but I got to know that there are people from other cities who had different social circumstances from which they came, different economic circumstances from which they came. Excuse me. But when you take away those different circumstances, I learned that we're all the same. And the parts that we're all the same about are the best parts in us. And Pilam gave direction to those parts. To me, to my brother, who was Rex of Omega chapter during the middle 50s, who sadly is not here tonight because he passed away at age 58, some 30 plus years ago. I learned that I would have associations not only with my friends that I met in the fraternity, but I would have associations with the people that Ed just talked about. Irish guys, believe it or not. I got one of my dearest Irish friends right here, Mike Guerin, and his wife, Carol. Mike and I got together when he was a cop in Milwaukee, going to law school around the corner. Maybe he took off by then, but he was going to college while he was a cop. And we just connected with each other. And he started working in my office as a law clerk. And when he graduated, needless to say, there was a place at the table for him. And his filling the place at the table added to the legacy that Steve Marcus talked about that has been laid to my feet as a claim. Because he shares in all of those things about making a better society. If we had every cop in America have the Mike Guerin mantra, we wouldn't be having grand juries, we wouldn't be having secret investigations, and we wouldn't have televised horror on the street corners. And so Mike and I have been like brothers, even though he wasn't in the fraternity, since the days that we first met. And his coming here tonight with his wife Carol is an honor to me. Jim Lazier, a Pilam from Florida, so he claims. And I didn't see his credentials, but I know Jim and his wife Molly from the neighborhood. And the fact that he and his wife came here tonight to celebrate this event with me is very special, and I appreciate your being here. Pat and Joni Kearns. Joni Kearns and I think I'm close to the same age, although she looks like she's about 35 years younger than me. And Pat is a couple of months older than I am, but we've been friends for 65 years. They're extremely wonderful human beings. And Bob Miller went to high school with me. I mean, sometimes paths cross here, there, and again and again. And his wife Nancy, I've never seen her in a situation where we didn't hug each other. So we've had a special relationship for all those years. The thoughts that I had about getting this award and coming to this group, and I didn't know who this group was that came here, and I don't know today. I was hoping Roger would straighten it out, but Roger, you dropped the ball. How do you pick a big pie? I mean, I'm certainly not that big. I like pie. Excuse me. I hope I don't get rid of all this stuff tonight, because with all those finger snaps, it's going to cure me better than the physicians and the pharmacists. So I don't know how a big pie is chosen. Herb Cole and Buddy Seelig and Steve Marcus and I, were in the fraternity together for all the years that we were in college, and we've interacted on a regular and ordinary basis since then. I'm thinking about a big pie person in this crowd tonight that I would nominate today if there's a process. That's my cousin Jimmy. My cousin Jimmy right down here, Jim Shapiro, is a retired United States bankruptcy judge for the Eastern District of Wisconsin. His beautiful wife, Rhea. We go back to childhood. So I am 83 years old. Jimmy played with me when I was a baby. He was a couple of years older than me. And he is like those other people who've come here tonight from the Omega chapter or otherwise, emblematic of the kind of commitment to goodness, ecumenism, color blindness, physical difference blindness, habit blindness. Accept people for the best that they can be in your presence. And don't try to change them into what you want them to be in your presence. Among the luckiest things that ever happened to me in my life was to have wives that gave me children. And I had two of those wives. And my beautiful, wonderful wife of 37 years, Annie, is sitting right down here. And she has been, my caretaker for lots of different things in our lives. But most importantly, she partnered with me to bring into the world my daughter Rachel, who is right here, this beautiful young lady sitting next to her. And Rachel partnered with Benji Wagner to bring us 3 little baby grandchildren, one of whom is celebrating his 5th birthday today, another one who celebrated her 9th birthday last week, and then one we call Bam Bam because it describes him not by name but by activity, and that's little Arthur, who is going to be 2 years old on July 3rd. My son Joshua, who is here with his beautiful wife, my daughter-in-law Julia, is my second son. My first son is moving from Singapore to the United States. Joshua and Julia have brought me 2 wonderful children, one a college graduate of a year ago, another going into her 3rd year in college. Spectacular human beings. My son in Singapore, to talk about the creed, adopted a Sikh Indian boy some 10 years ago, and he's moving from Singapore, where he's been for 13 years, to Los Angeles, where the family will be able to get together much more often and enjoy each other's company. And then I have a son who's in Washington, D.C. with Annie, and he's a lawyer married to a lady from Madrid. I mean, go figure. This little Jewish guy from Madison goes to school in Madison, and now he's got this whole international family. It's unbelievable. So he's got a little boy by the name of Simon, and Simon is a very smart little boy, and we just want all of them to have the same values. Relationships exist from our toes to our nose. We have them with our parents, with our children, with our family, with our doctors, with our teachers, with our classmates, and with our fraternity brothers. And if you try to count them or characterize them, you'd have to have a 90-plus story skyscraper to pile them up. My relationships have led me to this conclusion based on the comments of the people from the Pilam National Organization tonight, that relationships are as good as the people who are in them. And so I like to think that everybody in this room knows the creed and follows the creed, whether they can recite it or not. I like to think that I do too. I like to think that my friends and family do too. And so I'll leave you tonight by saying, and this is not facetious, remember the creed and Big Pie, Frank Gimbel.